Welcome to Wellington's Wise Zone, a podcast dedicated to curate weekly sports conversations, be a constant sports hub for content interview game changers in the community and the world. I'm your host, Wellington Burns, back with another episode, and I'm joined by a special guest who was on one of our, I think, our Superman review and episode last year for the old podcast. Barrett Knox, a former coworker of mine, good friend. Thanks so much for being back on, man.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be back.
Definitely. And for this episode, look, Barrett is a political savant, as I would say. I am not. So we always try to have like political conversations when we're around each other. And for this one, we're gonna have some political topics and also do a review of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. But the first topic I wanted to get to with this conversation is kind of like how can money and politics be controlled? That's obviously a big conversation that's happening right now. And you sent some notes, and one of the things you said that the immediately obvious answer is repealing Citizens United. Citizens United States has allowed corporations and other mega doors unlimited spending to essentially buy favorable representatives and incentives. What are kind of your overall thoughts about this topic and just kind of like, what can be the solution for it going forward?
Well, as you mentioned, the big one is repealing Citizens United. It's largely bipartisan as far as polling goes.
Yeah.
Gallup, Pew Research have repeatedly polled showing that Americans of a variety of political flavors have shown a lot of animosity towards
Mhm.
Citizens United because the ruling in effect allows corporations, mega donors to outspend and as a result outspeak
Mhm.
the average individual, which, as we've seen even just recently, has meant that essentially corporations are able to, if not outright buy politicians, but to quite literally purchase their own incentives, to purchase their tax breaks, all of that you see all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And the next topic I wanted to get to that's kind of been like a reoccurring issue is inflation. I think we even mentioned that on the last episode you were on when we had
For sure. Yeah.
this type of conversation. And one of the things you had said is that it does not seem to be stabilizing. Even, 1 year after Liberation Day, tariffs and international prices as a result remain volatile. And one thing that you mentioned in particular that caught my attention was the AI boom. How much of that, like the AI boom, do you think plays a factor into this and would have been kind of some of your observations on this topic?
Well, for the AI boom, it's almost affecting everything. It's affecting our spending in housing as
Yeah.
such. We've seen in the last year that there has been more spending on AI data center infrastructure than in housing,
Mhm.
essentially keeping that whole construction industry afloat in the US.
Right.
We've also seen more middle of the road, but I would argue it's a canary in the coal mine situation where it was just in the last week or two that we saw the PlayStation 5 see yet
Yes.
another price
Yes.
increase,
Yep.
and it's now
Look,
going
now
on
now
6 years.
I wanted to save up for it. Now I'm like, goodness, I got to save up even more for
Well, there's
it.
even rumor now that we're entering the space, if it's going to be 27 or 28 for new consoles, there's rumor of literally $1,000 boxes,
Wow.
not just because is, if you really think about it, a $500 PS5 to a $1,000 PS6, is it worth twice as much? Reasonably, as far as not construction, but labor goes
Mm.
to make that box? No, it's not. It's a result of AI companies buying out chip manufacturing. It's a result of tariffs, where the president has decided which countries are allowed, essentially allowed, to produce those products for the US, or even just with American Chinese relations, we've seen trying to limit Chinese infrastructure towards AI,
Mhm.
which has resulted in more limited chip production, which isn't just, we saw, was it a few months ago? NVIDIA was originally barred from
Mhm.
selling to China.
Yeah.
And then NVIDIA came back probably like a month or so later, um, got that changed. And we now see these companies having to compete for these chips,
Mhm.
like at much higher rates than were anticipated just a couple of years ago,
Right.
because they're They're competing against tariffs, they're competing against AI, they're competing against who can make these chips,
Right.
which has resulted in that sense in significant price increases.
Yeah, I mean, and I was going to get to that next about the fact that you had mentioned like even if the war were to end tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with these price increases the rest of the year. Like it's not going to like wane at all. Like in terms of that, why would you say that is the fact that like even if a war ended, we'd still see the price still be up and not even diminish until, throughout the rest of the year.
Well, it's because of long-term consequences.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the easiest things, quite frankly, try explaining that to the president.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
these are not quick fire tweets where he has been so thrilled over the last year and a half that he can just suddenly make world changing decisions, but fixing them takes a lot more time.
Yeah.
Particularly the Strait of Hormuz, we've seen roughly 20% of the world's oil energy
Hmm.
has been disrupted. And that, for example, we could see the Strait of Hormuz reopened tomorrow. The war could end tomorrow.
Hmm.
We could even imagine that all of the infrastructure that has been bombed out for the last month or so has returned. Like magical thinking, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
And even still, you're discussing months long lead times. You are talking the weeks and months to process the oil so it can be shipped.
Yeah.
You're talking about then shipping that oil to a variety of different ports. That takes more time, processing it then into what it ultimately needs to be for its destination.
Yeah. Takes
And with
a ton of
that,
time.
it takes a ton of time. And it's
Yeah.
not even just a single infrastructure, because I know I say infrastructure industry, it's not a single industry.
Right.
For example, we talk about gas prices. Like I can tell you this morning, I drove past the gas station on my way to work, and I want to say it was 369.
Mm.
A few days ago, I want to say it was 389.
Yeah.
So that's an example right there. It was 20 cents cheaper.
Yeah.
It is 20 cents cheaper. It's still a dollar more than it was a month or two ago, but it has decreased.
Hmm.
You cannot say the same on a day-to-day basis for your fertilizer
Hmm.
that is being purchased months in advance for the groceries you will buy in November for Thanksgiving.
Yep. And it's so
Like
true.
those are the consequences we're talking about, where everything could go back to the way it was tomorrow,
Hmm.
but we will be dealing with the consequences of it for months.
Yeah. A never-ending cycle and something like you said, we will see months later. And it's just one of those straightforward things. The next thing I wanted to get to was kind of the main impact the Iran war will have. And you have said that kind of like the US has kind of chosen to follow Israel and alienate the allies, particularly in Europe with NATO. What have been some of your main thoughts on this war, the ally choice that the US has decided to make, and how that's going to affect the war going forward?
Right. So I mentioned to you with the notes earlier that, like you were asking the question, like what's the main impact that we're going to see from this war?
Hmm.
And I used the umbrella term of what was it? America first, American imperialism,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is an easy thing to say, plenty of syllables to
Super easy.
cover. Yeah, super easy, super easy. Your next buzzword come November, right? Right. So like claiming that as an umbrella term to talk about long term. I'm not talking months, we're talking
Yeah.
years, like end of the decade, I would say,
Hmm.
where I mentioned like the United States choosing Israel over its allies. I'm not saying that in the more trendy sense of certain people in the United States realizing that America has prioritized Israel for decades. I'm saying in the sense of the United States is choosing
Hmm.
to give up their leadership in Europe. Like those are relationships that will take a long time to rebuild.
Yeah, for sure.
Even more so when we see NATO choosing not to back up Trump in an illegal war.
Hmm.
When in contrast, I also mentioned in our notes, we see China stepping in as a mediator with Pakistan.
Yes.
China's been very vocal in reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Many nations have been. Plenty have significant vested interest in the strait. But China isn't just talking for themselves, unlike, say, the United States.
Hmm.
China is talking about the Strait of Hormuz, about oil energy, because much of that 20% has an outsized effect on both Asia and Africa,
Mm.
as well as with Europe. Like Europe, NATO is
Yeah.
quite concerned about their liquid natural gas.
Yeah.
But China's thinking towards the end of the decade. They're thinking
They're
about
looking that
how
far. Yeah, they're
this
they're looking
oil,
that far. Yeah.
they're looking, I mean,
Yeah,
they just
way
released
down.
their newest 5-year plan in the last few months, I believe.
Hmm.
But they're talking about we want to secure energy for our neighboring, hopefully, allies.
Right.
They're talking about African countries that are working with them, like the African Union, put out a statement in support of Chinese, Pakistani mediators
Yeah.
because China's Belt and Road Initiative has significantly helped improve African infrastructure, African economies, particularly for oil, natural gas, other resources, including lithium, cobalt.
Hmm.
We're talking years, decades into the future. Like I was just talking with a coworker this morning about how I've been preaching for a few years now. It's not an uncommon position that a multipolar global order is the future.
Mm.
Particularly, the future is in Africa. African countries are going to experience a significant amount of population growth that most countries aren't in
Yeah.
just a few decades. Africa is going to be the continuing source of cobalt, of lithium, of gold, of diamonds.
Mm.
Where if you say can't get those from Venezuela, if China
Yep.
is even concerned that things aren't going to pan out internally, those are the relationships they're looking for.
Mm. Yeah,
And the
because
United States is not.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like another thing I wanted to get to was like the fact that you're saying like the United States is favoring old enemies, enemies that we've had before instead of like going for the future. Like, do you think that that mindset, obviously we know where the mindset comes from, but it's like a stuck in the rut. Like you're going for the old, but you're not seeing what's progressive. You're not seeing what's coming up. I think that part of it is just like the puzzling aspect. Like, would you attribute that to leadership overall, or is there another part of it that we're not seeing?
I would attribute it to leadership, for sure. I think you can say that easily, given that we've seen repeatedly that with Venezuela and now with Iran, these have been unilateral decisions.
Hmm.
These have been executive led decisions. We saw, I believe it was with Venezuela, it was oil companies
Right.
that were notified before Congress.
It's
So
crazy.
that is certainly because of leadership. It is because of one man that is indisputable for
Hmm.
sure. But I wouldn't say it's leadership in the sense of one person choosing to make better decisions for the country, for the people around him. It's not choosing old enemies in the sense of, well, because I'm the United States president, I have an obligation to continue the decades of Middle Eastern instability.
Yeah. Right.
Now, imperialism, capitalism are still there for sure,
Yeah.
but I would argue it has more to do with himself.
Mm.
That we're seeing Iran has had, I would argue, less to do with Israel and a whole lot more to do with Jared Kushner leading a
Mm.
lot of mediation talks. It's with sending JD Vance to various countries around the world to bolster political opinion.
Yeah.
It's suddenly paying for a lot more drones in a drone company that the president owns stock in.
These are all things. These are all valid. Yeah.
Like, it isn't just the idea that, well, Is the president ignorant to these long-term events, to these long-term trends?
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think he's thinking at all about the petrodollar or BRICS.
Yeah.
I think he's thinking of his own selfish idea of how can I make the most of this situation for myself
Yeah.
with personal enrichment? And that is what's resulting in ignoring these wide range of factors.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely would agree. I think we had already mentioned we've kind of mentioned the gas prices overall in terms of like, them us still seeing the impact throughout the year. Um But one thing I wanted to get to in particular was that Europe and Asia, you said Europe and Asia have it even much worse. That even though we're
Correct.
experiencing it currently, they're experiencing it at a level that's even higher. Like, what would kind of be some of your points towards what's going on there from what you have observed and studied, and just like also how long it could be for them, even in terms of like what they're having to experience.
Right. So the most significant effect appears to be in liquid natural gas shortages.
Hmm.
So Eastern Europe in particular uses a lot more liquid natural gas than other countries might, particularly in Western Europe or in the US.
Yeah.
If you remember when Russia first invaded Ukraine, it's been about 4 years now,
Yeah.
but when Russia invaded Ukraine, we also saw a significant decrease in liquid natural gas.
Yeah.
As a result, we saw the United States choosing to step in and shipping liquid natural gas to its allies. There was also a bit of East Asia
Hmm.
being significantly affected because they use more liquid natural gas than we would use outright petroleum, oil, and such.
Yeah.
That's where we've had reports of some countries having shortages, having limits. I believe I read the other day it was Sri Lanka
Mm.
that was somewhat similar, having to place limits, handle shortages. What reminded me of the energy crisis during the Carter administration.
Wow.
And that's not an unfounded comparison. I believe I sent you an article from at least the Brookings,
Yep.
that was describing how the Iran oil shock is arguably the worst since the energy crisis during the Carter administration.
Listeners, I'm gonna make sure I did this last time. I'm gonna add all the articles Barrett sent me so you guys can read it too, because there's a lot of information and I want to make sure everybody can can see what you added to for sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, definitely. But before we get to our long-awaited Force Awakens review that we were supposed to do literally I think it was December. Was it December, November? It was supposed
It
to be
was
December, right?
December. We
It
were
was supposed to be
pushing for
December,
it,
and
but
and
it
I was having so many
didn't
technical
quite hit.
difficulties. It just didn't hit. But is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to mention for this half of the episode? Anything that you see coming up? I know you mentioned like a global order possibly happening at one point, but is there anything that you wanted to mention or you've been observing that you kind of want to talk about?
Nothing in particular.
Nothing in particular.
Sounds
Is
great.
something
Nothing in
general? Something
particular.
general? Something
I can just
general.
rattle off all these things. Well, don't pay attention to any of it. You're fine. No. Um, I want you to pay attention to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
We said a lot last year. We repeated, nothing happens in a vacuum. I said it again and again throughout the episode, and that is where today we were discussing the Iran war. We talked about American imperialism, capitalism,
Hmm.
the future of African nations. We're talking about fertilizer. We're talking about plastics. We're talking about long-term inflation.
Yeah,
And that sounds like a lot because they're all interconnected.
for
Every
sure.
single one of those decisions, every single one of those consequences are all connected.
Yeah.
That's not a conspiracy. That's just how life works.
It's
Nothing
cold hard
happens in a
facts.
vacuum.
Yeah, those are facts. Those are
So
facts.
I say that to remind you there's been a lot going on since
Yeah.
our episode last year.
Oh my goodness. The
I
amount
would
of things
be,
have changed. Like, there's been so much that's changed.
for real, I would be remiss to neglect to mention the myriad of gifts the president has received,
Mhm.
which was not entirely legal. I would be remiss to mention that Americans have been murdered by our administration.
Yeah,
None of those things came out of nowhere, and they
not at
will
all.
continue to appear leading up to our midterms. They will lead you to the grocery store. They will lead you to your next trip to your local library.
Yeah. Support your local
You
library.
have to remember
Support your local
nothing
library.
happens in a vacuum. Like, do try to remember, I'm not asking you to read anywhere near as much as I try to read. I'm only asking, remember just a few salient things come
Yeah.
November. Remember just a handful of times that you realize, well, I don't do politics, but politics does you.
Yeah. That's I'm gonna clip that. I'm gonna clip that because that is such a poignant statement. Such a poignant statement. You have to like
Absolutely.
even if you don't, it does you every day. Absolutely does you every day. You can't get away from
Absolutely.
it. You can't get away from it. Like when people say, "Oh, like my vote doesn't really matter." I'm like, well, if you're gonna complain about everything, you might as well go up there. You have to. Your
But your
voice.
vote does matter.
It does. It does.
Now, because I mentioned in our notes, we briefly skipped over it because we got a little excited.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I
right.
mentioned you mentioned Citizens United. I was
Yeah.
discussing it. Your vote doesn't matter, but Zoran Mamdani is the mayor of New York.
Yes. Hmm.
And for comparison, in Pensacola, the home of book bans in the United States, we are the capital of book bans in the United States, among many other things.
How many of you knew that? How many of you knew that?
Right, right. Go to your local library, support your local library. If you love everything you've been seeing from Mamdani, then please go check out Jasmine Brown for mayor.
Mm,
Nothing happens in a vacuum. Zoran Mamdani came from a lot of support from the Democratic Socialists of America, from the Party for Socialism and Liberation. That's happening here. And it
absolutely.
will not happen without you.
Yeah. Look, y'all, if y'all don't listen to him, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. He's been here twice. Been here twice, and he's just speaking facts as he always does. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back with our review of Star Wars: The Force Awakens.